Hi guys, it's Chase with Star Tutors again, and we are here to walk you through the writing and language section of the SAT. We've completed the math no calculator section a couple of times now. Today we're going to go through the writing and language section of the April 2019 in-school test. If you guys watched our math no calculator video, you will have seen that the state government of Maine, of all places, decided to release the SAT test. So that's great news for you guys. So the ones that some students have probably already taken this is the in-school test that everybody took in April of 2019 at your local high school. That's what we're going to try to take today. The writing and language section is largely composed of grammar rules, so we're going to talk a lot about that. I'm going to try to give you guys a sense as to which grammar rules you need to focus on as you go through the test. In all likelihood, you'll see that the grammar rules are also in line with those main idea organization questions where it's like, you guys know the questions like, if the author were to add this sentence, does it make sense to add it here? You guys know the drill on those. The great thing about the grammar section is that if you memorize the grammar rules that we talk about today, then the main idea and organization questions become way easier to feel like you have comfort and confidence and time to go back and reread. And ultimately, those questions are very easy reading comprehension questions if you do have time to go back and reread. So again, we'll talk about it as we go. We're going to take a real time test, writing and language today. We have my timer here. Before we get going, guys, don't forget, please download. So we've taken our SAT tutorial, right? It's written and edited by current tutors. It's based on all the most recent tests like the one that I'm going to take today. All of this tutorial we put into our Star U app. Star U is on your phone, tablet, desktop. You can find it in the App Store or on Google Play, or if you're logging on a desktop, you can find it at www.staru.co. We'd love to have you guys check out the app. All of the content in there, all of the content from our tutorial is free now in the app. So create a student account. You guys can do practice problems. You can see all the lessons, all the strategies that I'm going to use today to help me, hopefully we'll see, get a perfect score on this writing and language section or the equivalent of that. So again, please download the app. And without further ado, let me see. The timer starts now. Okay, great. So we have 35 minutes. Let me mark this. I'm already starting slow, guys. Okay, let's see. Let's change this to a different color. So you guys can see I'm not totally nervous about this because I really do feel so comfortable with my grammar rules. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so on June 20th, 1965, murmurs of excitement filled the Kingston, Jamaica auditorium where way more people than were expected, which best helps establish the tone and stuff. The great part of the writing and language section, guys, is they're going to identify, right? They tell you exactly where to look and what you're supposed to be doing. This says which choice helps identify the tone and style. Well, tone, first of all, murmurs of excitement filled the Kingston, Jamaica auditorium, gathered for a commencement services at the University of the West Indies, along with the foreign graduates. Many people had to come. Okay, so way more people than were expected. That's probably wrong just because the tone, it's too informal for the tone. C, same thing, a whole bunch of unexpected people. B was okay. D is an enormous crowd. Okay, guys, so do you see that? So when you look at way more people than were expected and a whole bunch of unexpected people, that sounds way too informal for the rest of this passage. If you guys look at B, an unusually large crowd or an enormous crowd of an unparalleled nature, generally we can narrow it down because those two tones are okay. The answer should be pretty obviously B. An unusually large crowd is very simple. You'll notice about the SAT writing and language section that's keep it simple. Don't try to overthink it. An enormous crowd might even be, that might be a tone word that you can eliminate, but of an unparalleled nature, that's way too complicated. It's way too heavy of language, unparalleled nature, to reflect a typical SAT writing and language passage. So I feel pretty comfortable about that one. Let's see, along with, so this, it says, we read that service at the University of West Indies. At this point, the writer is considering adding the following sentence. The university was established by Royal Charter in 1948. So let's see, what do we way of Kingston, Jamaica gathered for commencement services at the University of Wales. Along with 400 graduates, many people had come to hear the words of this year's commencement. The Reverend came for them. Familiar with Dr. King's ongoing Dr. King's. Okay, guys, so the university, at this point, the writer is considering, the whole thing is about Dr. King. That's why I'm underlining this. The whole passage is about Dr. Martin Luther King, clearly. Should the writer make this addition? No, because the university was established by Royal Charter. That has nothing to do with Martin Luther King. So without a doubt, mark off the two yeses. That has nothing to do with it. So let's see, no, because it needlessly interrupts the discussion of Dr. King's visit. Probably no, because it really repeats information about the university. No, it's definitely C. right? The whole thing is about Dr. King. So why in the world would we include something about the university when it's just completely irrelevant to the fact that the reason we're even talking about it is because of Dr. King? Okay, let's keep going. Number 3 says, furthermore, the Jamaican audience was familiar with Dr. King's ongoing campaign for civil rights in the United States through newspaper reports. Okay, furthermore, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, the Jamaican audience. This is a transitions question, guys. It's covered, like I said, if you download the app, it's covered here. Transitions. Furthermore, the Jamaican audience is familiar. Furthermore is a support. By contrast, it's not a contrast transition, so it's not disagreeing with the sentence before. Reverend the King, the Jamaican audience is familiar. Furthermore, the Jamaican. No, it's not furthermore. It's not something that's ongoing or as a result. Both of those are what we call cause and effect transitions. You definitely don't need any transition here. That tends to happen. Don't overthink it. Let's see. The podium just a few feet away. They stood was thrilling. The days preceding, not only inspiring. The days. So this preceding, it's supposed to be the proceedings. Yeah. See. Be really careful, guys, because preceding, that's the preceding like word or sentence. Preceding with PRE, as it's written in no change, that's preceding. This is a vocab question. Look out for those. A lot of the same words. Precedence, if you set precedence, that's something that's been done in the past, but it's the proceedings or what's going on. So the proceedings of the day, or not only is the day's proceedings. Procedures is correct, but it's in the wrong form here. Proceedings has to be right. So I just happen to know that in my mind, proceedings was right there. That's a vocab term that you want to know about. Without even consulting notes, Dr. King began to speak passionately about challenges common to the United States. Okay, so without even consulting notes, this is what we call a modifying phrase, guys. Some of you might call it a positive phrase, I think. Without even consulting notes, comma. Anytime you have this, you want to say without even consulting notes, comma. It's the same thing with the dependent clause. More importantly, we can eliminate answer choices B and D right away for one reason. If you guys see a semicolon or a period in the same point, just as they are in B and D on the SAT writing and language section, you can immediately eliminate both answer choices, because a semicolon, for the purposes of the SAT writing and language section, 99% of the time is going to separate two full sentences, two independent clauses. And for that reason, a period does the exact same thing. So if we know that a semicolon and a period serve the same purpose, so they both can't be right, thus they are both wrong. Without even consulting notes, comma, Dr. King began to speak passionately. That's definitely got to be A. It's a modifying phrase followed by a full sentence, an independent clause. That's definitely A. That's, again, punctuation is a major grammar rule that you definitely want to memorize. Make sure you memorize those rules. At the time, both countries were on the cusp of great change. Jamaica, which would have achieved independence from Great Britain, which would have, no, it wouldn't, A is off, which would have achieved independence. That's saying that it may have done it. No, it did. It achieved it 3 years earlier, forming its own government, which achieves, no, it's not a present thing. Which will have achieved, no. It's having achieved, right? Having achieved, it says that is what happened. Jamaica, having achieved independence from Great Britain less than 3 years older, comma, there's a modifying phrase there, was in the process of forming a government. Perfect. The writer's considering revising the underlined portion. The government, the United States, meanwhile, is on the path to expanding civil rights for its citizens. Should the writer make this revision? Okay, guys, remember that if you're adding something, you're changing something, you have to reread. If they're doing this, they're including the United States for a reason. So let's see. At the time, both countries, I'm just rereading the previous sentence. That's so important on these main idea organization questions. Jamaica, having achieved independence from Great Britain, was in the process of forming a government. Semicolon, the United States, meanwhile, was on the path to expanding civil rights for its citizens. So yes, it should be included because it says both countries. And then if you see the very next line, also says both countries. So let's eliminate both no's. Yes, because it explains why the audience felt a strong connection to Dr. King. Yes, because it provides support for the claim made in the previous sentence. Yeah, B, right? Because in the previous sentence, again, if you reread these questions, these main idea and organization questions are super straightforward and super easy. You just have to make sure that you memorize your grammar rules so that we can feel comfortable moving fast enough, knowing then that we can go back and reread without feeling any time crunch. Let's see. He emphasized the need for a spirit of love and worldwide brotherhood from facing the challenges of the future. This is an idiom question, guys. Idioms, prepositional idioms is what we call them. This is largely based on sound. These are generally really hard questions. He emphasized the need for a spirit of love and worldwide brotherhood in facing the challenges of the future. I would have probably said for facing, but because it's for the facing of, I know B's off. For facing actually sounds better to me than in facing. Through facing is definitely wrong. I'm going back and forth between from and in, but I think in facing sounds better. In facing the challenges of the future. Again, prepositional idioms, it's either largely memorization, but most of you guys are really smart with these grammar terms, so I'd go with your gut on that one. I'm 95% sure that it's C, in facing. Number 9, which choice most effectively combines the underlined sentences? Keep these simple, guys. These types of organization questions, keep them simple. Don't overthink these questions. Dr. King spoke about unity that day. He also inspired unity. Dr. King spoke about unity by inspiring it that day. No, you don't want to use this by inspiring. That's a passive voice thing. Through speaking about, to those speaking about unity that day, Dr. King actually inspired it. That's definitely wrong. Speaking about unity, however, Dr. King also inspired it. You can't use the word however if you're inspiring something, right? Those are two of the same things. Dr. King did not just speak about unity that day, he inspired it, right? There we go. There's our colon, so that combines the sentence using a very, very distinct piece of punctuation, a colon. That's definitely got to be right. It also sounds the best. If you just read D, it's also the most logical, I think, just from how it sounds. Let's see, if it fails, let's see. Here you lived a great street sweeper. For people building a new nation, these words were particularly meaningful. For people building a new nation. So for people building a new nation, that again is a modifying phrase that we were talking about earlier. If you have for people building a new nation, comma, these words were particularly meaningful. That's the same one from number 1. So again, guys, these are just definitive rules. If you memorize punctuation rules, these become very, very easy questions. That just is what it is. It's never going to change. Modifying phrase, comma, independent clause. If you memorize that rule and then you see it on the SAT, and it's going to show up on every SAT for the very near future, for the very expanded future, you shouldn't have to worry about that. The experience had a profound impact not only on historians but also on Dr. King. Which choice best provides the transition from the previous paragraph? So let's go back in the previous paragraph. If they're asking about the previous paragraph, we have to go back and read the previous paragraph to make sure we understand it. Dr. King spoke about unity day. He also inspired unity day when asked by reporters. They remembered most. Many audience members said of the speech. They had these words. Everyone's efforts had great worth. Okay, so he's talking about the thing is the audience. Really had a profound effect not only on the audience, so reported. Yeah, definitely not on historians. Definitely not on reporters. Those who spoke with him, maybe, but I think it's got to be the audience. That's just again, if you just go back and reread these because you have your grammar rules memorized and you can move through those quickly, that should be a relatively easy question. I mean, it says the audience right in the previous paragraph. Whenever you see that, whenever you see in a main idea organization question, just make sure you reread it. Those become very easy reading comprehension questions. The key is that we know our grammar rules so well that when we get into these questions like number 12, we can fly through these. Obviously, I'm not doing a great job of that speaking to the camera, but we can fly through these because we know them so definitively. We know the rule. Look out for this, guys. When George II, colon, if a colon is not underlined earlier in the sentence, 99% of the time there's going to be a punctuation question, just like this one, right, that also deals with the colon. So right away, we know that it's got to be either answer choice A or B because the other two don't have colons underlined for 12. When George II, colon, Duke of a small German principality called, whatever that means, Saxe-Meiningen, established. Okay, so yeah, you want to do B, right? Because Duke of a small German principality called this. When George II established a local theater in 1866, you want the established outside because everything that's inside those colons should be able to be removed. Established is not a word that can be removed from that sentence for it to still make sense. It's the primary verb of the sentence, so it's got to be B. Let's see, number 13. Which choice most effectively sets up the information that follows in the sentence? If it says follows in the sentence, make sure we read what else is in the sentence. The high degree of involvement was unusual. While many principalities had court theaters, a duke would usually appoint a director to oversee the plays. So high degree of involvement. George not only supervised the plays, but also A looks pretty good. Let's see. George had been interested in the arts from a young age. No, because they're talking about usually a duke would appoint the director. So it doesn't matter if he's involved at a young age. At the time, was not a major cultural center. No, the duke maintained one of the best orchestras. No, it's got to be A. Right, because they're saying that usually his involvement, that over-the-top involvement, wasn't characteristic of the time. So that's why the answer choice has to be this high degree of involvement was unusual. He was unusual. Which choice provides the best transition from the previous paragraph for 14? Georgia recruited several little-known actors. Okay, so it's talking about directors at the time exerted. In contrast, George advised actors, designed elaborate sets, development, the role of the modern director. So George is the modern director, right? So it's talking about him as a director. So let's see if we can find that. George had recruited several little-known actors when the theater company visited Berlin. I don't think so, but maybe it was the beginning of May. Definitely not. That has nothing to do with the previous paragraph. George had to implement many staging changes. George's work. Okay, so this is key, guys. This is the best transition. The word director here clues me in that it should be D, but that's just having seen so many tests. I actually think that 14, A and C are not terrible answers. George had to implement many staging changes. It talks about in the last paragraph how involved he was doing staging redesigns, right? Staging sets. But it's ultimately about his work as a director and how he inspired the modern director. So George's work as a director was on full display when the theater company visited Berlin to perform Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, captivating the metropolitan audience. When the curtain rose at 7 p.m. on May 1st, the audience was immediately amazed by the production's elaborate sets and costumes. Okay, so this is an apostrophes question, guys. Apostrophes. Let's see. When the curtain rose, the audience was immediately amazed by the productions. By the productions, it's one production. So answer choice A is off because that's the plural form of productions with the apostrophe after the S. It's got to have an apostrophe. It's the production set, so it's possessive. It's got to be D, yeah, because this apostrophe over here for C, you don't need that after sets. Sets is plural, it's not possessive. That's just a very easy grammar rule to memorize, but you have to have it memorized in order to think that you're going to get that one right every time. Let's see, going back, George had modeled after Roman originals. Columns and decorative sculptures occupied the foreground of the stage. They're just considering revising the underlying portion of the following. Sculptures occupied the foreground of the stage, while a backdrop painted with the images of columns and fig trees provided the optical illusion of depth. Let's go back and reread. He had modeled his original sets, elaborate sets and costumes, modeled after Roman originals. Columns and decorative sculptures occupied the foreground, as audience marveled at the authentic-looking scenery. So yeah, it provides something about the scenery. So I think he should the writer make this yes because it supports the claim of free sentence? The sentences were modeled on already yes because it further students. Yes, it's got to be B. Right, it models that everything that's happening in the backdrop. I think that makes sense. As audience members marveled at the authentic looking scenery. Okay, so that's good. 17, distinctive footwear. Let's see. So each bedecked and with headdresses. Roman citizens streamed onto the stage, each bedecked in distinctive clothing, footwear, and wearing. This is D, guys. This is a parallelism question. Whenever you have a list like this, look out for parallelism. The sentence has to be consistent in structure. So wearing clothing, each bedecked in distinctive clothing, footwear, and headdresses. If you were going to go with in headdresses or wearing headdresses, it would have to say wearing clothing, wearing footwear, wearing headdresses, or in clothing, in footwear, in headdresses. You have to keep it consistent. That's a parallel sentence structure question. Number 18, which choice most effectively combines the sentence at the underlined portion? So again, think easy whenever you're combining sentences. A trumpet then signaled the entrance of Caesar. His glittering toga and armor made him instantly distinguishable. Caesar, it was his glittering toga and armor that made him instantly distinguishable. Maybe Caesar you don't want to say being. Caesar, who was instantly by his glittering toga. Caesar instantly, let's see. A trumpet that signals the entrance of Caesar. Who was instantly distinguished by his glittering. I think it's C. It's got to be C. Who is a pronoun describing Caesar. It's a modifying phrase. I think that's easy. It sounds the best of those ones too. I don't usually want to go off of sound, but in that case, I think it just does sound the best. So that's probably right, I think. Let's see, 19. The venue, George's. I think it's supposed to be technically Georg. That's how you pronounce it in German, but I think George. We'll keep calling him George. The venue George's company used was quite different from those used in Shakespeare's time, which was the best introduction to the paragraph. It was used different from those in Shakespeare's time. For example, he set the stage for the climactic murder by arranging the crowd of inspiring Romans, thereby suggesting that he also carefully orchestrated the chaotic moments following the murder. So it's about the moments, right? That's what the venue is providing. So some audience members are less enthusiastic about the new style. No. The venue company was quite different from those used in Shakespeare. Maybe choreographed plays action with equal intricacy. Yeah, it's talking about the action. I think that's probably right. Influence of the Roman people. No, it's got to be C. I know it doesn't say anything about Shakespeare, or it doesn't. It's not. A is not necessarily wrong, but C is definitely what the rest of the paragraph is talking about. These different moments in the play that work out because of his style, the way that he choreographs this stuff. Let's see. George split the crowd into smaller units. He assigned individual dialogue. So that's a full sentence. George split the crowd into smaller units. That's an independent clause. He assigned individual dialogue and staging positions. So that can't be a comma because he assigned. It can't just be a comma. It could be comma and, but that doesn't look like and assigning is different than and he assigned. So that's the out. Okay, so then this is a semicolon. Be careful, guys, because it says George split the crowd into smaller units, semicolon. As it is now, the semicolon works, but it says assigning individual dialogue and stage positions, thereby making the scene. The way that they've redone it by putting assigning instead of he assigned, that's a really easy way to trip yourself up. This has to be assigning. Assigning makes that a modifying phrase afterwards. It's no longer an independent clause, so only a comma works. Be really careful about that, guys. That is a very, very difficult punctuation question, but if you know the rule and you know that semicolons have to have two independent clauses, you can go back up here and notice that they took about the part about he assigned and just made it assigning, meaning that a semicolon is no longer useful. It is when it is he assigned, but that's not what the answer choice says, so we have to eliminate it. One feels oneself present at the beginnings of a revolution. A theater critic wondered, presumed, sensed of this climactic scene. It's got to be observed, right? I think this is a vocab question. I think it's got to be observed because the theater critic does observe something. A theater critic wondered. You wouldn't know if he wondered it. Presumed, no. Sensed. I think it's got to be observed. That's what a critic does. They observe something. I think that's probably right. Just go with the one that it seems the most logical within the context. This is all about context, similar to the reading section. Inspiring directors around the continent design and execute more unified, detailed productions. The title George was dubbed with was... Okay, so no, that's not it, right? We don't want to use the passive voice. Who is the person inspiring directors, detailed productions? George is the person that's inspiring that. So we have to have George. Yeah, it's got to be D. It's not George's posthumous title that's doing that. It's not the title. It's not the title, George, right? It's not the theater duke was posthumously. George was posthumously dubbed. George has to be the subject of the sentence. He's what's being modified. So George has to be as close to the modifier as possible. Guys, these are just rules. They're definitive rules. If you look and memorize all the punctuation rules, let me check my time real quick. Oh shoot, we gotta get going. If you memorize all the punctuation rules, you're gonna be just fine. Let me see if I can get through this. For centuries, bird enthusiasts have bred white-rumped chameleons, brown finches with tufts of white feathers for there. This is a pronouns question. Brown finches is plural, so the possessive there has to be plural, not its, which is singular. Generations of this selective breeding have produced a new species, the Bengalese finch, while existing only in captivity. Again, guys, a semicolon does not work here because while existing in captivity, whatever's on the right side is not a full sentence. Existing only in captivity, which exists only in captivity. It's got to be B. These two, D and A, are both off because on the right side there's not a full sentence, and it exists makes that is actually when the semicolon does need to be used. It is a subject that would make it. So such breeding was intended to produce certain physical qualities in investigative vision, but it's often an unintended consequence. Increased song complexity, but it also had an unintended consequence. Colon, what was the colon is an elaboration, so it elaborates on what was just said. What was the consequence? The consequence was increased song complexity in the Bengalese finch relative to that of the white-rumped munia. Okay, guys, this is a really difficult comparisons question. Comparisons relative to that of the white-rump. So to that is what gives us away. It can't be relative to, because we're comparing the song complexity of the Bengalese finch to that of the white-rumped munia. I think it has to be A when compared with those. No, not because that's one song complexity, not those. That's plural. When compared with the right, no, it's not compared with the white-rumped munia. It's to that of, right? It's got to be A for comparisons because we're comparing the song complexity to the song complexity, not the song complexity of the white munia. To explain this phenomenon, Tokyo ornithologist restored the finch was primarily by mate selection. He found that female finches tend to choose males with loud, high pitch and probably these males are chosen over those with soft. Choice must be given by the sense of the underlying portion. Finches tend to choose males with loud, high pitch and probably over those with soft pitch. Loud, no. Female finches, males with loud, are chosen. That's a passive voice, loud, high pitched. By males, no. By, right? By males, that's passive voice. Choosing males with no. It's got to be A. Female finches, we want the modifier found that female finches tend to choose, right? That's the subject. The subject has to be acted on by the verb. That's something that we all learned in like 3rd or 4th grade. We just don't remember it because it was so long ago. Deacon saw a contradiction in song complexity should occur when there is pressure to identify a mate of the same species. After all, it should not occur among birds in captivity. Terence saw a contradiction in song complexity should occur when there is pressure to identify a mate of the same species. Thus, that should not occur. So I think this one has to be therefore. I said thus because that sounded right in my head, but it wasn't an answer choice. Thus and therefore are both cause and effect transition. Thus, it should not occur among birds in captivity where there's this pressure is lower. That's a cause and effect. This happened, thus this should happen. So I think therefore should be right. Thus was the first one that popped into my mind, but I know that thus and therefore essentially serve as almost the same type of transition. There's a it's called a cause and effect. To test this hypothesis, his team tracked wild Rohingya in 3 areas in Taiwan. At each site, they not diagnosed. That's a medical thing. They didn't dissect flock composition. Percentage, right? I think percentage, they analyzed it because when you see the term percentage here later, that's typically analysis. That's like a scientific analysis. Sorry guys that I'm moving so quickly. I was talking way too much at the beginning, but let's see if we can try to move on. Maybe I'll come back to some of these if I have time. The linear, I'm pretty sure these ones are right though. These are just kind of going off the top of my head. The linearity at the mountainous site was more than 0.1 point lower than that at the urban site or the agricultural site. Which choice best reflects the information presented in figure 1? More than 0.1 point lower than that of the urban site. So the mountainous site was here, was 0.1 lower, 0.7 to 0.6 was more than 0.1, so that's right. More than 0.2 lower than that of the urban site. No, it wasn't more than 0.2, it was like 0.7 to 0.58 maybe. About the same as the urban site? No, that's clearly not. Exactly 0.7 higher? No, it's got to be A, right? That's based on this direct graph. Just go back and look. Again, try to see if you can see figure 1, go down to figure 1 and just analyze the results. Anytime you get a figure on the reading section or on the writing and language section, take that into account. Which choice best reflects the data presented in figure 2? Percentage of birds or flags, the word mixed, let's see. Observe 2. Oh, do we have something up here? 30, yeah. At the same time, a lower percentage of flocks at the urban site were mixed than at the mountainous site. At the urban, a lower percentage. No, the urban site doesn't have a lower percentage, right? Here. Same time, a lower percentage of flocks at the urban site. No, the urban site is higher than the mountainous site. It says it right there. A greater percentage at the urban site agricultural sites were mixed than at the mountainous site. That's true. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to go with B. I can come back to this one. I'm going to start this one. I'm going to go with B just because I got to move, but I think that's got to be right because it is. The urban site and the agricultural site are both higher than the mountainous. That would make sense. Let's see. Okay, now a study indicates that song complexity is subject to the pressure. Indicates that no comma needed here, right? I don't think. Okinoya's study indicates that song complexity is subject to the pressure of the birds need to identify a mate of the same species. Oh yeah, it's got to be D, right? You don't need to break there. It indicates that something happens. If you write that sentence out yourself, there's no way that you'd put a comma there. It just indicates that something happened. There's no need for a comma. That's a punctuation rule as well. You'll see, I think so far of the 32 questions we've seen, I bet 6 of them are punctuation. So memorize your punctuation rule, if not more than 6. The writer wants a conclusion that places the passage discussion within a larger context. Which choice best accomplishes that goal? So a larger context is key, guys. A larger scientific context. That's what we need to think about when we're reading this. In the way such relaxation explains song complexity in the white Rohingya's descendant, the domesticated Bengalese finch, and provides intriguing support for the idea that bird song can evolve through a complex interaction of selective pressures. That's something that's scientific. Suggests that white Rohingya's and other birds do not have to be domesticated to develop complex songs. No. Proves that habitat has more to do with bird song complexity than does any specific mating pressure. No. Indicates that white Rohingya's have more complex songs than that. No. It's got to be A. bird song through complex interactive of selective pressures. Yeah, because they talked about pressures the whole time. Guys, it's all in context, right? We were reading that whole thing. We should be able to get that question right because it's all within the context of the passage. We just have to go back and reread and then think about what we're reading. Precision agriculture, the use of, and a lot of that, guys, just so I don't talk too much because we do need to get through this. I'm doing okay on time, 7.5 minutes. A lot of that comes from my knowledge, even though I've been talking this whole time to the camera. A lot of this comes from my knowledge that I know the grammar rules well enough that I can get through those really quickly, put my head down if I really need to, and then I have time to go back and reread these because these comprehension questions are really easy if you know your grammar rules so you can get through them quickly and accurately. That's still very important, and so that you know and so that you can definitely reread. That's very, very important as well. Precision agriculture, the use of technology and data analysis and farming is a new tool. Which choice provides supporting information about drones that is further developed? Okay, precision. Okay, yeah. Sometimes you got to regroup. By the way, when you start a new passage, precision agriculture, the use of technology and data analysis provides a new tool as opposed to the type of remote controlled area coming in. Farmers look to increase. You might decide that drones, which have already proven useful to the film industry, are just what they need. Detailed data about crop health. Farming, it's not A on this one, right? Because the film, that has nothing to do with anything. Along with training and how to operate them properly. Nothing about farming in there. With the critical information provided about harvest, yes. Despite criticism about them from consumer advocates, no. Right? It's about farming. It says in the first sentence, it's starting to talk about farming, which means that in all likelihood, the passage is about farming. And then in the second paragraph, we see crop health. It's got to be about farming. Harvest is then the only one in answer choice C that mentions that. Detailed data about crop health provided by drones can help crucial decisions for farmers, such as when to irrigate and whether to use chemical treatments. Provided by drones can guide crucial decisions for such as when to irrigate. It's not a question. It's not Ron Burgundy, right? You don't have a question at the end of that sentence. To irrigate and whether to use chemical treatments. That's right. I think should they irrigate? No. Should they? No. It's got to be B, right? That still sounds right. You just don't need the question mark at the end. Let's see, some drone companies also offer analysis services, which choice most effectively sets the information provided in the next part of the sentence. Some drone companies also offer analysis services. They can combine digital files. Mark zones indicating difference in growth rates, the pressure of weeds. Most effectively combines information in the next part of the sentence. I think that's right. Stand to make a considerable profit. No. Talking about marking zones, difference in growth rates. Mark zones are being controlled by mobile apps. No. Specialty crops, no, right? They're talking about this. They're talking about the analysis services of marking different zones to make harvesting easier, to find weeds. These maps, the farmer can irrigate and apply herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers to each part of the field according to specific needs. So they're talking about farming still. Keep that in the back of your mind. Drones compare favorably with the image capturing satellites and piloted aircraft. Other technologies are used to gain aerial views. Drones are less expensive, provide finer grained images, and they fly low to the ground. And they fly low to the ground and can take pictures. Oh, this is a tricky one, guys. And because they can fly low to because they fly low to the ground. So that's a modifying phrase or dependent clause. Because they fly low to the ground, can take pictures even on cloudy days. So it's got to be D there. That's tricky though. That gave me a pause because and they 37 looked right, but then it'd sound right if you keep reading. Where you get to the word can, that doesn't sound right suddenly. Jean Hediger, whose family operates a 3,400-acre organic grain farm, can attest to the advantages of the technology. Okay, so she's a farmer. Hediger acquired a drone after losing half of her harvest in year 1 to weeds, or 1 year. Which information about her provides the most effective transition between the previous sentence? So she owns a farm, she's a farmer. That one that we have here is not bad. Considered acquiring a drone from Corey Jacob, who runs a farm in Indiana. That doesn't really have anything to do. We haven't even been introduced to Corey yet, I don't think, because with federal regulations on drones. No, she's a farmer. What would help her as a farmer? Enjoys having an aerial view of her farm. After losing half of her harvest in 1 year. No. It's talking about the advantages of drones to farmers above. And she is a farmer who lost half of her crops, which is why drones are helpful. Just think about it in the context, guys. She estimates that identifying problems faster with timely crop data and using less weed killer will save her tens of thousands of dollars in future years. Yeah, guys, future, right? Will save, this is an easy one, I think. Will save, had saved, no. It's future years, are saving, no. Have saved, right? These are all past tense. No, it's will save. In future years, that's will save is literally the future tense, and it says future years. If you just read the sentence and consider it in the context, it should be pretty straightforward. Okay, she estimates that at identifying problems faster with time the crop data using less we could save her tens of years, considerably more than the $7,000 she paid for the drone and any potential cost. So considerably more. This is considerably more. No, we can't have a comma with this is because that makes those two full sentences. The way that it's written right now, without this is, it's not two full sentences. So we don't need a period. And remember, there's the semicolon and period issue that we ran into earlier. If you see a semicolon and a period in the same spot, they are both wrong. They both can't be right if the other one is right because they serve the same purpose as it pertains to the SAT. So that one's got to be B just by default, even if we don't look at that one. How much time do we have left? 2:10, okay, I think we're okay. I think we've answered all of them. Pilots who fly planes for crop dusting and other purposes experience disquiet regarding the presence of drones in the airspace. Experience disquiet. Now, regarding drones might be accidentally flown into tall objects. Objections to drone may be objections with regulations. So that's about safety. They worry about, it's not experience, this guy, stew over, no, get all worked up about. So B and C are the wrong tone and they worry about they stew over, they get all worked up about. That's not something you would find typically in the SAT. And if you see enough of these if you see enough of these practice tests, you're just gonna know what the right answer is, right? You just know that it's not gonna be B and C because that doesn't reflect the tone of a typical SAT writing language passages. Objections to drone may be engaged with regulations. No, not engaged. This is a vocab. Addressed, maybe. Encountered with no, not encountered with, refuted with no. It's got to be addressed. How are they going to do it? They haven't done it yet. They haven't refuted anything yet, but they're going to address it in the future. You address something with regulations. 107. Despite these challenges, it is important for drones. Despite these challenges, it's important for drones to be integrated in the agriculture system. In being, it's got to be C, right? I just started reading that one, and that's what I would have put in anyway. If you read all of those, this is just a verb tense. That's an infinitive. That's pretty easy. It is important for drones being integrated into the agricultural system. In being, no, be. Those are all wrong pretty easily. It's got to be to be. I think that's the only one that even makes sense logically. If they used effectively, drones hold the promise of making farms more productive and cost-effective while minimizing waste in water and chemical treatments, which would. But the previous passage as a whole. So the whole thing's talking about farming. I know we're running out of time here, but it says the writer wants to insert the following sentence. Any discussion of agricultural drones must acknowledge the potential safety concerns. Guys, the potential safety concerns, we just talked about safety concerns with those regulations. So let's just go back and find let's just go back and find where they were talking about that. What's the paragraph is that? That's paragraph 4. This whole thing, we were just talking about how regulations are safety. So it's got to be after or before paragraph 4. Placed at the beginning of paragraph 4, right? I don't mean to be. Oh, there we go. We just ran out of time. That's just as I circled on. That's good because I feel like that one was right. But the point is that we were reading the whole way through, and even though I was talking and wasting time during some of that, I really feel like we answered all those questions correctly. And the only way you can truly do that, and I think we got them all right. There was one that I wasn't totally sure on, but and that's okay, right? If you get 43 out of 44, it happens. But the reason that I can go into these writing and language tests in particular, this is by far the easiest section of the SAT because you can memorize these rules. So even if you don't speak necessarily well to your friends or whatever it is, and you don't typically use proper grammar, you don't typically write at high level grammar, it doesn't matter because these are definitive rules. I don't know, I'm not going to cure the problems of the universe or medicine. I'm not going to find some cure to some disease by being able to answer grammar questions. But this is still a major part of your college admissions process, and whether that's right or wrong, who knows? But for right now, for those that are watching this video, it is still going to be a major part of this, for better or for worse. So the point I'm bringing up is if you know your grammar rules, I was totally confident rereading. I wasn't really worried about timing at the end until I started looking and I was like, oh no, I'm running short. But I really still felt confident because I knew that I knew the grammar rules. And if worse comes to worse, I can just not talk to the camera anymore and put my head down and answer those grammar questions first. And then I would make up the time. The only way that you can do that in order to answer grammar questions, and again, if my head is down, I can answer those very quickly because I know what is going to come up. I know when semicolons have to be used. I know when colons have to be used. I know when commas have to be used. And that makes it really easy then to feel comfortable with timing, to feel comfortable going back and really rereading those main idea and organization questions, which then, as you saw, were very easy reading comprehension questions if you have time to go back and reread. So again, I really feel like this is the easiest section. If you're struggling with which sections you should start studying for, start with this one. This is worth 400 points of the overall 1,600 point score. This is the most important one to nail down first because it's the easiest. These are defined grammar rules. If you memorize the grammar rules, you will get better at this, and they come up on every test. They're going to be the same rules because they need to have a test that compares students that take it in September or October with the same students that take it in April, so they have to test the same rules. So if you're ever worried, like, well, why would I study for that grammar rule? It might be different next time. It's not going to be. The semicolon rules, if you look back at every test that's been released by the SAT in the last 3 years, every single one deals with semicolon rules. Every single one deals with verb tense. Every single one has main idea and organization. You could repeat this test. Like, I feel like I could go back and repeat this same test over and over and over again, regardless of what the passages are, because they're just testing the same things. The grammar rules are very defined. If you memorize those grammar rules, you're going to be fine, because then the main idea and organization questions become easy reading comprehension questions when you really can go back and reread. Now, of course, I say all this before we've actually had a chance to look up the answers. So let me go through and make sure that, let me find these on the internet. Okay, so let's see. Number one is B, great. 1 is B, 2 is C, great. 3 is D, 4 is C, that's the vocab one, proceedings, okay. 4 is C, feel good about that one. 5 is A, 6 is D, 7 is B, 8 is C, 9 is D, 10 is B, 11 is C, 12 is B. I better be careful because I watched the Math No Calculator. I took the Math No Calculator test, and a very, very astute student pointed out that I actually missed one, and I misread the guy. So if you've watched the video, look in the description. So I better be careful as I read through these. 12 is B, 13 is A, 14 is D, 15 is D, 16 is B, 17 is D, 18 is C, great. 19 is C, 20 is B, 21 is D, 22 is D, 23 is C, 24 is B, 25 is B, 26 is A, 27 is A, 28 is C, 29 is D, great. 30 is A, 31 is B. Okay, I started that one to come back to, but I felt pretty good about that one. We just didn't look at C and D. I didn't definitively. I always like to mark off all my answer choices to know that that one's the right one. On that one, I didn't, so I started to come back to. I didn't, but on 32, I didn't either. I felt so good about that one. About generally with grammar rules, you kind of know because of you just see so many of these. That's why this section is the most important of all SAT sections. 32 is D, 33 is A. I'll tell you why in a second. 34 is C. 35 is B, 36 is A, 37 is D, 38 is A, 39 is A. Oh man. Oh wait, 39. No, sorry, 38 is A. Sorry, 30. Just to confirm, if you guys want to look at the answer, 37 is D, 38 is A, 39 is A. I was like, I think 39 is A. I skipped 39. 40 is B. I was like, 40 has to be B. That's not a full sentence. 40 is B. That's right. 41 is D. 42 is B. Great. And 43 is C. 44 is C. Okay, guys. So we got all those right. And then here's what I want to leave you guys with before we sign off. I want to leave you guys with this on this test. If you're not already getting a perfect score, we got 44 out of 44. Okay, that's 100%. That's 400. We're well on our way to a 1,600. Okay, if you're not already getting a perfect score on this section, this is the section you want to focus on most of all. Even if you're at a 380, that's 20 free points if you just go from 42 out of 44 to 44 out of 44 by just answering every question right. In terms of concepts, the writing and language section is by far the easiest on the SAT. The Math No Calculator, the Math Calculator reading, those are way harder tests than the writing and language. So again, if you're not getting a perfect score already on this section, focus on this one first. Get a perfect score here and be consistent like we just were there, so you never have to worry about it again. You know going in, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna knock this one out. I know I can get a perfect score on this one. That will give you all the confidence in the world overall in your test, because now we're 1/4 of the way to the perfect score. And on the Math No Calculator, Math Calculator gives you this momentum as you go into those last two sections. Like, hey, I did really well on that writing and language. Let me keep it up with the math sections. Again, focus on this one. This one is the most important because, frankly, the concepts are just way easier than the other sections. Even if this is your best section, keep working so that it's a perfect score, and then focus on the other ones so that you never have to come back and worry about this one. And these ones are the easiest questions. It's 20 to 30 and sometimes 150 free points essentially if you just go memorize your grammar rules. I promise. Okay, so guys, again, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I didn't make any mistakes on my grading. For the student that pointed that out on the Math No Calculator, that's a very astute eye. We really do appreciate it. That's why we put it in the description. I don't think I missed any here, but if I did, hopefully you guys catch it on there, and we're happy to make that correction again. But hopefully it was 44 out of 44. If you feel comfortable with your grammar rules, you're gonna do well on this test. So please make sure you study. Like I said before, all of the grammar rules can be memorized on our Star U app. If you just download the app in the App Store on Google Play or at www.staru.co, you can do all of this studying. Every strategy I use from the grammar section here also can be found on the app. So if you keep doing these practice problems, you keep looking at them, you're gonna do well on this section. And again, that will really prompt you to do really well in the other sections as well. So in any case, guys, that's a lot of words. Thank you for tuning in yet again. We're going to come out with more videos. Please comment below if you have any suggestions on videos you'd like to see from us. We really appreciate all the feedback we've gotten. We've had awesome feedback on the ACT series. We're really starting to create the SAT series now. We're going to have other helpful videos that are shorter, that just deal with specific points that you guys might want to talk about. Comment those below. We love to hear from you. It always helps us know which videos we should make. In any case, guys, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully we see you soon. And yeah, we'll see you later. Have a great day, guys.